that we are free to exercise our faith and then compete in the image of that God. But for the Greek overall, the most important thing in their culture was freedom. For the Roman, it was right, that you have a right. And even Paul in his letters and his appeal said, I have a right as a Roman citizen to appeal to Caesar. For the Jew, it wasn't freedom, it wasn't right, it was righteousness. How can I be the most faithful person I can be? The second concept, what was the personal concern? For the Greek, it was beauty. This is why they competed in the nude. This is why they did so much to really train their body. The focus was on the human body. The personal concern for the Roman was power and the focus on the government. Not the person, not the body, but I got a right and I got a government and I'm going to be powerful. Well, what was the personal concern about athletics for the Jew? It was disgusting. It was disgraceful to compete in the nude, to do any of this. It just didn't lead to righteousness. And so they really disdained everything to do with the games. What was the greatest virtue? For the Greek, it was wisdom, focus on the mind. And they believed that these bodily exercises help cleanse the mind and help give them to a new understanding, or kind of what some of our modern day athletes understand is that when they run, at some point they experience a euphoria that helps clear the mind. For the Roman, the highest virtue was pleasure. Plain and simple. Hedonism. I'm going to focus on what feels good to me. What do I enjoy? For the Jew, it was obedience. And the focus was not on the mind, as with the Greek, not on the self, as the Roman, but on God. The rewards. For the Greek, it was internal. That's why they got these crowns that were made out of vegetation. They didn't last. It was internal. The Romans did get things that lasted. It was on the external rewards and fame and fortune. And then for the Jew, of course, it was eternal. Who were the games for? For the Greeks, the athletes out on the athletic arena. They were the ones that these were for. In fact, the stands and the fans were very, very sparse. We have one recording in the annals of the ancient Greco games that a slave owner actually was so angry with one of his slaves that his punishment was to go and attend the Olympic Games. Because the Olympic Games were so miserable, the heat, the sweltering heat, they were swarms of bugs and very, very poor accommodations and poor food. So the games were for the athletes, not for the fans, not for anybody else. But for the Roman, they were for the fans. Thousands upon thousands. The estimates would range up to 500,000. At least 350,000 people were at the Circus Maximus. And these were the games that people would come and they would watch these gladiatorial battles and all the decadence. But for the Jew said nobody. They're not for anyone. No one should participate in them. The concept of the athlete in the Greco world held in the highest esteem. For the Roman, for the fans' enjoyment. The athlete in the Jewish tradition was viewed as frivolous. So the Jews primarily thought the whole athletic realm to be at best frivolous, but more so decadent. Because it promoted self-glorification, it was opposed to glorifying God, it promoted statues, make no graven image, of victors and gods. It uncovered the body, so the Jews had huge problems with the games. And now it's kind of a segue, helping you understand where we're going. Into this, one can understand then the situation of the Apostle Paul, a Roman citizen, and yet raised as a Jew, but yet raised in a Greek culture. He could clearly comprehend the problems of the Roman approach, the obliteration of life, the deification of athletes and emperors, sacrificings of Christians in the arena. It's very likely that Paul had to fight wild beasts in Ephesus. And yet Roman citizens didn't have to do this. And so did he actually have to fight the wild beast? Well, compare 1 Corinthians 15:32, and also compare Luke 16:10 and Hebrews 12:1, 16 and 1. But my point here is that Paul understood what those martyrs were, who they were. And he says in Corinthians that they are a spectacle. The word there is a theatron, where we get theater from, that people go to watch this drama. And he says that these athletes, what was happening was a spectacle, a theater presentation. And so he knew all this. He knew also about the indulgences of the Greek in terms of nakedness and hero worship. And yet, he had a first-hand knowledge of how athletics in and of themselves were not necessarily negative. He was trained in the gymnasium of Tarsus, along with some other Greek boys. And so we can begin to see how Paul is uniquely positioned in the New Testament. Greek training in the stadium, the academy, the all that went on there. Saw how the Romans had perverted it. Got all of this righteousness from his Jewish tradition. And now he's trying to synthesize what we now know as a theology of competition and sport. That's where we're moving. We're going to start to move in some of these directions in this course. Again, make sure you get all of your notes at exam quality if you're taking this course for credit. Thanks for joining me in these last 3 lectures about the integration of faith and sport from 3 different perspectives. I'm Dr. Greg Linville. I look forward to being with you again in the near future in this Theology of Competition and Sport course. Okay, we'll take a break.